Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. I'm Pastor Thor Ramsey with Center Church. This is Gospel for Five, where we take 5 minutes out of our day and focus on the gospel because Jesus is the gospel. Now, here we are in some very controversial verses at the end of chapter 2 of the book of Proverbs. Controversial for the culture we live in, I should say. So you will be delivered, and we're talking here again about the person who lives the wise life, the person who actually seeks after wisdom. And the beginning of wisdom, of course, is, according to Proverbs, the theme, the fear of the Lord. And in seeking God's wisdom and delighting in his commands, this person is assured of at least living a life of wisdom. Doesn't mean we're delivered from all pain and suffering, that we'll only have a bed of roses as a life. It just means that with everything that comes to life, we live in the center of wisdom because we're following God, who is wisdom. All right, so if you do so, you'll be delivered from the forbidden woman. Now, the forbidden woman here, of course, well, I shouldn't say of course, but the forbidden woman here is a woman married to somebody else. So in the same sense, you could say this could save you also from the forbidden man, a man married to somebody else. This section, verses 16 through 19, are about adultery. So you'll be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words. So there you have it. Either a man or a woman can entice you just through their language, as James talks about the tongue and the evil that can come from the tongue, or the good. The tongue is this very powerful thing, according to the Bible. In other words, our words have great influence over people. So we can actually persuade people to do the right thing, or we can persuade people to do the wrong thing, enticing them into a extramarital relationship in this case. 17, who forsakes the companion of her youth. So adultery is about forsaking the one you're married to. Generally, people marry when they're younger. So there is this general idea. Again, Proverbs are generalizations about this is generally how life will work out if you follow the ways of wisdom. So generally speaking, in an adulterous relationship, you're forsaking either the wife or the husband of your youth. Not only that, you're forsaking God and forgets the covenant of her God. Because marriage is not a contract biblically, it is a covenant. And the primary covenant in the marriage relationship is a covenant you have with God. So covenant is a much stronger idea than contract. So you're basically taking this gift God has given you. He's given you the gift of a mate. Now, if you're not happy with the mate that God has given you, that's generally an issue of pride. You feel you deserved someone better than the person God gave you. And it's always a sign of pride. Generally, dissatisfaction in your marriage with your mate is a sign of pride because you think you deserve someone better other than the person God gave you, who is God's gift to you. So God gifts you a spouse, and you're not satisfied with the spouse God gave you, so you will break the covenant because not only are you disparaging the gift God gave you, but he gave you a woman or a man to marry, you marry them, and then that covenant, that relationship is primarily between you and the Lord. The marriage relationship, the covenant, the commitment of the marriage is between you and God primarily. So that's why Solomon equates forsaking the companion of your youth with forsaking God. You forsake your marriage covenant, you're forsaking God, because God's the one who put it in place. He's the one who gave you your spouse. He's the one who gifted you with this life you've built together, and then you take all these gracious gifts that God has given you, and you will destroy them in this relationship. For her house sinks down to death, and her paths to the departed. Like, this is the way of death. This is not the way of life. It is the way of death, and the person who forsakes their spouse for an adulterous relationship is walking in the way of spiritual death. Of course, controversial in our culture, in our society, and we'll pick up there tomorrow. Now, what has God said to you?